Hello, God. Nice to have you with us as we kick over broadcast day here on the great SiriusXM 82. Yours truly, Christopher Russo, on this Tuesday afternoon. Nice to have you with us with Eddie and crew at 888 Mad Dog 6, two-way sports talk telephone number. Chat to you about what's going on as far as the world of competition is concerned on this Tuesday afternoon here at the MLB Network today in Secaucus for the week and a good part of last week before we venture back in across the Hudson River. Nice to have you with us as we chat to you about the world of sports goes here today. Lots to do. We'll come up with a theme here in a minute. I'll get a story in on the board here first, and I'll take a break, and then I'll give you the theme and get your calls in as we chat to you about what's happening as far as the world of competition goes. One-day game going on right now in baseball. The Nationals lead Atlanta. I think that's 4-2 in the bottom of the sixth inning, I believe it is. That's an important game. The Nationals begin the day about 5 games behind as far as the NL East is concerned. In the National League, the Phillies lost last night, a terrible loss themselves with their bullpen in Arizona. And the Nationals, who have Scherzer pitching that nightcap, currently trail the Phillies by 5 games in the loss column in the NL. They trail the Braves by 6. This is a 4-game series. Make rain out from right around the All-Star game. Now, remember one thing here about these two teams. They do not play again in Atlanta the rest of the way. Only one more series will be played in Sun Trust Field. So keep that in mind as we move this along. Braves need to probably win the Nationals probably need to win 3 out of 4 here this week. One little baseball note, and then we'll get to a break, and then I'll get into the theme of the afternoon, at least the beginning of it. We talk about travel all the time in sport. I mean, we talked a little bit about it even with the WNBA last night with what Vegas had to do, and then they forfeited the game against, at least at the moment, against Washington when they decided not to play the game against D.C., the Las Vegas Aces, because they arrived at 2:15 in the afternoon for a night game that night after a long travel scenario from Vegas. They travel commercial, the WNBA. Not that anybody should care about that scenario, but they travel commercial, not charter. They got all fouled up with planes and delays and what have you. Well, we had the same sort of scenarios at times associated with Major League Baseball, and you guys will find this interesting. First off, you know that the Yankee and the Red Sox game ended at about 10 minutes to 1 in the morning on Sunday, of course, when the Yankees and the Red Sox played that 10-inning game, an interminable game that was finally ended after the seeing eye ground single by Benintendi in that bottom of the 10th inning after the Red Sox had trailed 4-1, bottom 9, got walks and a hit, and then an error by Andujar, and ended up winning the game an inning later. That game ended very late after the ridiculous start time of 8:10, 8:12 on a Sunday night. It needs to be changed. Baseball, though, never controls their television schedule properly. They let the networks run baseball, which drives me crazy. And all sports do that. They're not the only one. Even the NFL, to a certain degree, does it. But the baseball does that, too. There's no way these Sunday night games should start that late. Well, anyway, to make a long story short, the Yankees the next day, and the Yankees have the hardest travel schedule of any team in the sport because they are the Yankees. I mean, they're on television a lot. Nobody will ever play a getaway day game for the Yankees. In other words, when the Yankees are on the road and they have a getaway day, they never get a chance to play a day game. Even on, I'll give you an example. Wednesday, they play the White Sox in Guaranteed Rate Field, wherever that dump of a ballpark is called, and you think the White Sox do them a favor, play a day game. No. The Yankees play the next day at home. They play a night game in Chicago, then they play Thursday night at home against Texas. I mean, that's not awful travel, but it's just not fair. I mean, everybody should give these teams a break. Dodgers last week played a 6 o'clock local game. No, I'm sorry. I think it was a 9 o'clock local game against a 6 o'clock local game against Milwaukee on Thursday, and then the Brewers had to play Friday night at home against the Rockies. I mean, these teams are just ridiculous with these schedules and make these teams travel. And they especially bad for the Yankees, who play a lot of Sunday night games, who never get a getaway day game, and those kinds of things. So the Yankees arrived in Chicago after the Sunday night game in Fenway at about 6 o'clock in the morning. They had a game 12 hours later. And you say that's easy. They're professional athletes. They're flying charter, 4-star hotel. Don't have to worry about their bags, check-in. I get it. to a certain degree. I understand it. And they're young players. They're 25, 28, 30 years of age, making a fortune. So I don't expect this to cry crocodile tears. I mean, I expect them, in fact, to deal with some of this. But the Major League Baseball schedule is really absurd. They've cleaned up the NBA schedule. Football's only once a week. But the baseball schedule is, and here's a perfect example for the Yankees, who ended up winning the game last night 7-0, is at times out of control. We all know about the Sunday night games and then the travel on Monday. The Red Sox were off yesterday. They got a little bit of a break. Well, this went to new heights, the game on Sunday night. I don't know if you saw this, but a little birdie gave me this information. You know, the umpiring crew that night, that was Phil Cuzzy, Brian Knight, and Chris Conroy, the umpiring crew that night. They had assignments the next day, too. Remember, they don't travel privately. They travel commercial. I don't know how it works. They might be able to use their miles to get upgrades. I don't know how it works. They might have to do their own travel deal, and then they get reimbursed. A lot of guys do that, and then they go first class if they wish, if it's a long enough flight. But if they fly coach, they can pick up the difference and use it as salary. I know they used to do that in certain scenarios. I don't know how it works as far as business class and economy, but I do know that the schedule is absurd. Now, there were day games last night in the East. There were day games. There was certainly a day game there was a day game, of course, in Citi Field with the Mets. Not a day game, but a game that was close to Fenway Park. You could have gone to Cleveland. That wasn't that far away either. I mean, there were a couple of places you could have gone that would have made it a little more conducive, but not baseball, not the Umpire Association, and I'm not too sure who is in charge. But 3 of the 4 umpires from that series that ended late Sunday night, that's the Phil Cuzzy crew. You know where they were last night? In Texas, in that 100-degree heat for Seattle and the Rangers. Now, I mean, the game is over at 12:50 in the morning. They got to get to Logan, fly to Dallas. That's not around the corner. Remember, they are not flying. They don't get any, it's not like they get a bus that picks them up in a lobby and they can have somebody, the traveling secretary, take care of their bags. That is them. Now, they might get a car service, but that is them who are taking care of their bags. So 3 of them ended up going to Texas to deal with Mariners and Rangers. 12 innings, terrible heat, away you go. Seattle won 4-3. And then the 4th person, the home plate umpire of that Red Sox game on Sunday night, who was Chris Conroy, I believe. You know where he went yesterday? Guess where he was? He was in Phoenix calling the plays at third base and down the line and check swings. And he was in Phoenix. He joined his original crew. He was in Phoenix last night to do the Diamondbacks and the Phillies after doing home plate the night before in Fenway. And lo and behold, what happens in Phoenix? 14 innings, 4 hours and 28 minutes. You cannot make this up. How does baseball and the Umpires Association come up with a schedule where they make these teams go out there, or umpiring crews or umpiring teams go out there, travel without a day off after a Sunday night game, and end up in the middle of nowhere and end up in another city, another time zone, or 2 time zones, or 3 time zones away the following night? I mean, no wonder half these umpires are asleep. I mean, that is absolutely ridiculous. How do they do that? So Cuzzy and his 2 others were in Texas. That's bad enough. Boston to Texas, that's a 3.5 hour, 4 hour plane ride. There was a 627 plane I don't know the airline, but there was a 620-something plane, may have been United, that went from Boston to Phoenix. And if you're one of the guys who, or one of the travelers who soldiered to Logan, they get to the gate and to go through security, get to the gate, and then wait in line and get in your to get on the plane, and you were sitting in 26B, lo and behold, next to you may have been a major league umpire, unbeknownst, and he's probably fallen asleep, probably in coach to save a little money, flies to Phoenix, gets there at whatever time it might have been locally, probably about 11, 12 o'clock, gets to the ballpark 7 hours later, finds himself at third base, blowing calls left and right. Why? He's half asleep. 4:28, 3 o'clock in the morning later, he can go home, go to the umpire's room, get a bite to eat, and fall asleep. What a joke. That's absurd. That's absurd. 12 after the hour, I'll come back and do the theme of the day here on Mad Dog Unleashed.